In 1998, Hollywood's take on Godzilla would be unleashed onto an unsuspecting public. This monster mash was directed by Roland Emmerich, whom some call the master of disaster because many of his movies involve massive destruction, like Independence Day, The Day After Tomorrow, and 2012. Godzilla was meant to be the biggest blockbuster of 1998, and while it was successful, it was not the monster-sized hit the studio executives were looking for. What's good, internet? Jake here, dumb as ever, and in this video I'm going to discuss Godzilla, Hollywood's 1998 take on the King of the Monsters. And we're also going to discuss how the toy line for the movie completely failed due to the extremely dumb decisions and demands of the people in charge of this movie. This is the second video in my movie toys line of videos where I talk about a movie and the toys associated with it. This is my way of yapping about movies and toys, which is something I've always wanted to do. If you like this type of video, please consider liking and subscribing. That will be the best sign to me that you guys want more videos like this, and it will help me fight against the evil algae rhythm. The 1998 Godzilla movie is largely regarded as a terrible film, which is why I chose it for my first members-only Discord night. The channel members and I had a great time watching the movie and making fun of it the entire time. It's just a really good movie to do something like that. 10 out of 10 would recommend. This was the first time I had watched the movie in a long time, and I was genuinely excited to give it a shot. It's a guilty pleasure of mine to really like things that other people generally don't like. I don't really know why. Maybe I just like being a special snowflake, and I was very much ready to be the special snowflake to be like, guys, Godzilla 98 is low-key good. Unfortunately, I cannot be that guy today. Now, I do want to say that I don't absolutely hate the movie, so if you're a fan, hang in there, because I do have praise to go with my criticisms of the film. I will say in a lot of ways, the movie was doomed from the moment it was passed to the duo behind Independence Day, director Roland Emmerich and screenplay writer Dean Devlin. Don't get me wrong, Independence Day is a fantastic movie, and I do think the team could have done it, but their attitude towards the Godzilla franchise is questionable to say the least. In a 2013 Huffington Post interview, Emmerich was asked if his heart was really into Godzilla, and his response was this: I don't know. Also, I'm not really a fanboy, so I was changing Godzilla. The original, how Godzilla looked, didn't make sense to me. Obviously, this is a bizarre outlook for someone to have when rebooting a beloved franchise, and one has to wonder why Emmerich would even do the movie in the first place. Thanks to his 2022 Hollywood Reporter interview, we kind of know why. The reporter asked Emmerich, "You and Dean Devlin were planning an Asteroid Destroys Earth movie after Independence Day. Instead, you made Godzilla, and by that time, Armageddon and Deep Impact came out. Is this closure?" In response, Emmerich said this: "I didn't want to do Godzilla, but they made me a deal, which was unheard of. I said, okay, let's go about this really radically. I'm not doing Big Belly Godzilla, I'm doing him as a lizard." That was supposed to tell everybody I can't do this movie. Toho said, "Oh, we'll call this new Godzilla the Hollywood Godzilla. Then we can still do our fat Godzilla." I said, shit, I was constantly working on my Meteor film. It just got swept away by Godzilla, and then all of a sudden Michael Bay came along and did it first. So Roland Emmerich desperately wanted to do a Meteor movie, and took the job of Godzilla so that he would have that opportunity. But by the time Godzilla was coming out, so was Michael Bay's Armageddon, which was a smash hit and the second biggest movie in 1998. Emmerich also implies he was subtly trying to indicate that he was not the right person for Godzilla, but the studio execs specifically wanted a completely new take on the monster, so he ended up being the perfect person for the job by accident. Emmerich and Devlin weren't the first people to touch the project either. There were many writers and directors attached before with ideas and designs that paid more respect to the original King of the Monsters. But again, the execs feared that the movie would be perceived as campy, so they went with the sleek dinosaur we see in this movie. This Godzilla was designed by production designer Patrick Tatopoulos, who gave the monster a distinct iguana visage. This was not the Godzilla of old. It was leaner, meaner and could run. Totopoulos also gave Godzilla a big old Chad chin, inspired by Shere Khan from the Jungle Book. Now, many people did feel like this design of Godzilla was so radically different that it didn't even feel like the monster, and it also appeared borderline disrespectful to the fans of the franchise. In this Sci-Fi Japan article, a Japanese fan named Yoshiyuki Kasuya said this about the design. "That's not Godzilla. He got killed with 4 missiles, but the Japanese Godzilla is almost bulletproof, and the Japanese Godzilla is handsome, but the American Godzilla is not." In defense of the radically changed design, Patrick Totopoulos had this to say.
Yes, it felt to me it was more respectful in some aspect to not try to alter the Godzilla that was done for generation and just step onto doing a new creature, a new direction. You still have the spirit of the old Godzilla within that new guy.
Me personally, I've always really liked this Godzilla design. His long neck and giant chin have always made him look super striking to me. Though in 1998 I was 2 years old, so I watched the movie way more on TV and VHS. I didn't really have preconceived notions on what Godzilla should be. I just knew he was a big lizard monster that attacked cities. Deadass, I was probably more familiar with the lore of Reptar than Godzilla at the time. So I thought he looked cool, and I pretty much feel the same way today. He doesn't really scream Godzilla to me, save for the back spikes, but I still like him as a giant dinosaur design. Now, I'm not going to recap the entire movie, but there are some moments and details I'd like to highlight. Matthew Broderick plays the main character, Nick Totopoulos, who is a chill-ass viber, to be honest. He basically does all of the science and figures out everything going on with Godzilla. Literally the MVP of the movie, and he kind of reminds me of Leonard from Big Bang Theory. Side note, I've seen every season of Big Bang Theory. Bazinga! There's like 8 other characters, but the only one worth talking about is Colonel Hicks, played by Kevin Dunn, who also plays Shia LaBeouf's dad in the Transformers movies.
No, Dad! Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, I am. You're not getting a Porsche.
It was super funny watching this movie with a bunch of Transformers fans because we were all cracking jokes about this guy being Sam's dad. And I'm not gonna lie, it was comforting to see and hear him since I liked so few of these characters, and he's one of the least boneheaded in the film. For most of the movie, Godzilla is attacking New York, and the way the filmmakers handle this is insane. In some scenes, Godzilla is a huge lumbering monster like you might expect, but there are other scenes where it is just unexplainably intelligent and is able to leap around New York like he's Spider-Man. Godzilla also frequently disappears for long sections of the movie into the subway. Question mark? This is a part of the movie that drives me crazy. They gave Godzilla this ability to burrow into the ground, since that's something lizards can do. Cool, whatever. The issue is, they use this ability as an excuse the entire movie to let Godzilla hide so the human characters can chat about random BS. There's pressure from Godzilla, and then suddenly the pressure is gone. And it's like, okay, we can just sit and talk about it now for a little bit. Also, let me say that Godzilla is way too big to be hiding and digging around under the streets of New York City. It is legit shocking that the filmmakers thought this was a reasonable or even partially believable explanation, and it drove me crazy the whole time watching the movie. Something I do have to give the filmmakers credit for is the use of puppets, animatronics, and all manner of practical effects despite the heavy use of CGI. This movie is like at a perfect crossroads between practical effects and CGI, and stuff like the scene where Godzilla picks up the truck uses a huge puppeteered Godzilla. Even though they probably could have used CGI for that entire scene, they went the extra mile, which feels increasingly rare in today's blockbusters. One of my favorite parts of the movie is the Scooby-Doo-ass chase sequence, where some attack helicopters are trying to take down Godzilla. The best part is when Godzilla somehow hoodwinks one of the pilots into destroying the whole top of the Chrysler building, and the pilot's response to this incident is just,
that is a negative impact. I repeat, that is a negative impact.
Unironically hilarious line delivery. I would say the exact same thing in this situation. Nick figures out that Godzilla can reproduce asexually and proposes that he is going to lay eggs soon, but then he gets fired by the military over some BS. Nick ends up with the French Secret Service, who are there because Godzilla is actually France's fault. I guess the writers couldn't imagine that the United States would cause their own Godzilla problem, but whatever, we got hella French people people in the movie, and Nick is rolling with them now, because unlike the military, they're actually taking the egg thing seriously. The military is able to drive Godzilla back into the ocean, and then submarines hit him with torpedoes. It seems to work, and the computer screen even says target dead, as if it would know. Wow, Godzilla is destroyed and the movie is over. Just kidding, there's 50 more minutes left of the runtime. I swear, everyone in the Discord call groaned when we saw this. I feel like we were all so ready to be done with it. Anyway, the French and Nick head underground and find Godzilla's nest already filled with huge eggs in Madison Square Garden. Of course, while they're rigging the eggs to explode, they all start to hatch, unleashing like 100 derpy looking baby Godzillas. This part of the movie is so clearly inspired by Jurassic Park, which had only come out 5 years before, and its sequel, The Lost World, only a year before Godzilla. I have a love-hate relationship with this part of the movie because I do think it's fun, and it's one of the most practical effects heavy. The whole scene with the Madison Square Garden filled with eggs used miniatures, so the look of the scene feels so tactile and real. Some of the baby Godzillas were played by actors in full costumes, and there's some hilarious behind the scenes footage of them practicing for the movie. The hate part of the love-hate relationship is because it takes way too long to get through this part, and it feels like they tacked on another half movie for no reason. Madison Square Garden is destroyed, as are all the baby Godzillas, and we think for a moment it's over and nah, Godzilla is still alive. Obviously, of course he's still alive. The scene where he finds his dead offspring is pretty sad, and the first time I felt literally anything for this version of Godzilla. Obviously pissed about his little Godzillas getting blown up, the giant iguana chases our main characters throughout the city. Godzilla almost eats the group and their taxi in what I can only describe as a Hot Wheels racetrack situation, but with quick thinking, Nick is able to give Godzilla a hella bad toothache, and they get away, though Godzilla still chases them. By the way, this part in the taxi is also practical, and the actors were really placed into the mouth of the beast and shaken around by the animatronics. Really cool stuff. As Godzilla chases the group on the bridge, he gets snared by suspension cables and is soon trapped and easily killed by the military with a few missiles. I just want to point out the whole final scene here is Godzilla getting ensnared in these bridge wires, but somehow he can dig underground perfectly fine and nobody knows when he's underneath them. Nick and Godzilla share a moment as the light fades from the beast's eyes, and the movie stops being US military propaganda for a second and gives us a real, solemn moment to understand that Godzilla is not a monster, but a wild animal that was just too dangerous to live in the world that created it. And then everybody cheers. And then a P. Diddy song plays in the credits. Awesome. Interestingly, a sequel to this movie was completely possible, but it didn't make as much money as the studio wanted, and Emmerich had absolutely no interest in doing a second movie, which is probably for the best. On the bright side, there is Godzilla the Animated Series, which continues the story right where the original movie left off, though I think Nick started mewing in the seconds between the movie and show because damn bruh, he looks like the Breaking Bad meme guy. In the show, the last surviving baby Godzilla hatches and imprints on Nick, the first person it sees. Nick and a team of new and old characters travel around the world with the new Godzilla, fighting other monsters. In addition to the original Godzilla's powers, Junior can also use his atomic breath, which the movie half-assed by giving him like super windy explosive breath. I only watched the first 2 episodes of the show, and it's like fine. Fairly typical 2000s action cartoon stuff, though the monster fighting seems really good, and I know at some point a cyber Godzilla enters the picture, so I definitely need to see that. Godzilla 1998 needs work, to say the least. It had some interesting ideas and some decent action, but you can see why Toho, the company that owns Godzilla, started referring to him as just Zilla. He did appear in one Japanese movie, Godzilla Final Wars, for a few seconds, but we're not just talking about the movie in this video. Let's talk toys. While the Godzilla license is held by Playmates today, back in 1998, the late toy company Trendmasters were known for making Godzilla toys. In fact, you could argue most of their success had to do with Godzilla toys, and the 1998 Godzilla movie should have been a slam dunk for them. But in their infinite brilliance, director Roland Emmerich and writer Dean Devlin did not want the monster shown at all before the movie came out. Now, an idea like this can definitely work. Just look at Cloverfield. But the main difference between those two is that Godzilla was meant to be a blockbuster action movie with a toy line and Taco Bell ads. As a result, before the movie came out, there was no merch or advertising featuring the big stinky lizard in full. Robert Fried, an executive producer on the movie who was one of the people responsible for securing the rights to an American Godzilla, had this to say about keeping the design secret. They wouldn't allow any of the licensees to see the creature. They weren't even allowed to ship the toys until the day of the release of the movie. They were so obsessed with the secrecy of it. It was no big secret, but the 6 weeks prior to the release of the movie are when you do the bulk of your sales, and they eliminated that. The life of movie merchandising is usually 3 weeks before the movie opens and 3 weeks after. If you cut off pre-sales, you cut off half of your sales. There were a lot of unsold toys. The idea that they were not even shipping toys until the movie released is insane. If 1998's toy aisles were stocked like today's, chances are you are not seeing those Godzilla toys until a month after the movie was out. Trendmasters' Godzilla line suffered so much that they outright canceled their toy line for Godzilla the Animated Series. Even though the company had invested a lot into the toys already, and many prototypes and just fully functional toys were already made. They even had a commercial. The prototypes have since dispersed into the aftermarket and are collector's items for many Godzilla fans. Let's talk about the toys that were actually released though. There were 4 types of toys happening in the 1998 movie line: Godzilla, baby Godzillas, humans, and vehicles. The humans and vehicles are like fine. As a G.I. Joe fan, I do like a good action figure and vehicle toy, but these are severely basic and remind me of those generic Adventure Force toys from Walmart. The vehicles look pretty decent though. The Apache attack helicopter is especially fun to me, since I would consider it the most iconic vehicle from the movie. Also, check out Nick decked out in the biker jacket. They were really trying to make this geek as cool as possible for the toy line. With Godzilla and the baby Godzillas being the only monsters in the movie, I can see why they went the route of making human characters and vehicles to flesh out the line. The main issue is that these toys don't really feel like Godzilla toys, and I feel like they could have benefited from adding battle damage like giant claw mark, or giving the toys exploding action, since most of the vehicles just get blown up by Godzilla. Speaking of Godzilla, Trendmasters made hella toys of the big stinky lizard. There are action figures, electronic action figures, puppets, a gigantic version, and a piggy bank. The basic action figures are the best Godzillas in the line in my opinion. Sure, they are very small, and the whole ad campaign is size does matter, which by the way is an insane tagline. What's even crazier is they included this dick joke in all of the toy advertisements. I don't know, man, maybe I'm the friend that's too woke, but size does matter is not an appropriate phrase for children's toys. In the basic Godzilla's case, size doesn't matter, and he looks great. They gave him a launching missile for his mouth, which I would assume is meant to imply the atomic breath that does not appear in the movie. False advertising much. He also has the best articulation of any of the Godzillas and isn't bogged down by a ton of electronics, though the missile does awkwardly stick out of his head. There are larger non-electronic figures, but they're all posed very specifically, and I prefer toys that can pose on their own. They are great looking figures though, and I can't hate on these sculpts. Trendmasters captured the monster really well for the most part. The coloration on these figures is the most interesting to me, because a lot of them favor a blue highlight, probably since most of the movie takes place at night in the rain. This one in particular, which is actually a Toy Biz action figure for some reason, has like a wild berry Pop-Tart deco that I really like. And now, for the first time ever, I have a guest on one of these videos. Iconic Transformers reviewer JCC2224 let me know he had some Godzilla toys in his storage and offered to shoot some footage and give his thoughts on some of his baby Godzilla toys and his electronic living Godzilla figure. Unfortunately, the living Godzilla no longer works, but still cool to look at.
He's alive! He's alive! Oh my gosh! The Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie stuff was very, very interesting. They made toys of the little babies, and they also made larger Godzilla toys. These were made by Trendmasters, which is very funny given how this movie didn't really trend too well with Godzilla fans. But still, these are very, very awesome toys. I had all of these as a kid, and I had a lot of fun with them. The little babies are definitely some of the most fun. They articulate kind of decently. Some of them have action features, though, like this red one. I love how this guy can just kind of slap you a little bit. Very, very fun. I love all the paint and everything. They look very detailed. I love the eyes especially. They look both menacing and adorable. And then this red color and all the other colors on their heads, they just look really, really neat. I love these little babies. I wish I had them all, but I at least have a few here to show you. But Zilla herself was definitely one that I loved as a kid. Very nice articulation and everything on it. The legs can also move somewhat decently. But the coolest thing is that this is actually animatronic. Now, the thing wasn't originally working when I dug it out, but I magically made it work again, sort of. You hit the button, and it roars. It's supposed to move as well, but man, this toy is well over a quarter of a century old, so I think we can forgive it. Overall, the original Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie toys were a lot of fun, but they definitely are toys of their time.
Thanks, JCC. I do have some thoughts on the baby Godzilla toys because they are definitely the oddest in the line to me. The babies don't really look like the ones from the movie. They're more just normal dinosaur coated, whereas in the movie they are basically mini Godzillas. The coolest baby Godzilla toys are the ones with the eggs. You can place the baby in the egg and press a button in the back to make it pop out. Though inaccurate, the baby Godzillas are kind of fun, or at least more fun than the human toys. Over the years, public opinion on 1998's Godzilla has softened. While it's true that Toho changed his name to Zilla, at least for the Final Wars movie, I legitimately don't think there's that much hatred for the movie these days at Toho, and they probably are recognizing the nostalgia of fans who grew up with the movie. Godzilla and Zilla have both even gotten figures in Bandai's very popular movie monster series line of figures, which has been a long time coming. Even Takashi Yamazaki, the director of the Oscar award-winning Godzilla -1, had this to say about 1998 Godzilla. The 1998 Godzilla was a fairly well put together and fun film, but I can understand the people who also say this isn't Godzilla. I think as a kaiju horror type of movie, it is quite well executed. And to their credit, I think it was the first time Godzilla was rendered in a digital context and methodology, so that was a huge achievement for its time. Bro, if this goat likes 1998 Godzilla, I simply must respect it. Whew, this video took a lot longer to research and write than I thought it would, and even now in the intro I can't help but feel like I'm missing stuff. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and also check out my memberships if you're interested in supporting me more. For just $1 a month, you can get access to a members only Discord, and you can join the next movie night and watch Small Soldiers with us. We're watching Small Soldiers March 7th, 2025. If you happen to watch this video after that, no worries, we'll watch more movies, so feel free to join. I'm considering doing a second channel video going over the animated series, so let me know if that's something that interests you. Also, thanks so much to JCC2224 for sending me footage and doing a little review for this episode. I loved how this small collab ended up being a mix of our two video styles. It's really awesome how it worked out, and I'm going to try and do more of these in the future. Okay, that's it for now. I gotta get back down to the content mines. Ciao.